Welcome back, Mobile Home Park Nation. Ferd Neiman here again today. Another great episode, another new guest for you. This guest, he's an engineer, he's a data analyst, he's a process junkie. He knows everything, knows how to fix stuff, all industries. He's worked with Rent Manager and developed some software to help improve your mobile home park operations. Please help me welcome my guest, Saad Shah. Saad, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ferd. Thank you for having me.
You got it. Well, Saad, tell us. A mutual acquaintance introduced me to you and told me you're the guy in property management and everything else that we need to learn from. So I know a little bit about you. I've read some of your stuff, but for some of our audience that doesn't, give us a little bit more of your background and kind of what you do today.
Great. So I am a industrial engineer by education. I got my degree in industrial and operations engineering from the University of Michigan, and I spent most of my career either in writing software or building mathematical models for analyzing processes and systems. And I started a company called Metric X. The whole business is around helping companies manage their data and monitor their metrics. And we have an offering in the property management space called Rent Viewer. Our website is rentviewer.com, where we offer different solutions related to process improvement and monitoring metrics or data analytics, specifically for the property management space.
Okay, great. And now Rent Viewer, is that the product that's incorporated through Rent Manager as well?
Correct. So Rent Viewer displays metrics and can help you do data analytics. And on the back end, it's connected to your property management system. So we integrate with Rent Manager, but we also integrate with other systems like Entrata. And in fact, we build dashboards for even companies that use Yardi, Appfolio, and other systems.
Okay, great. Can you give us a little bit of what's the normal, if there's normal metrics or optics that mobile home park operators are missing? I think we all know what some of the key variables are. Like I want to watch my collections. I want to watch water sewer expense. I want to make sure, I've got all my bells and whistles going everywhere I can. My sales are going, all that kind of stuff. But in general, what are the blind spots that people should be watching that they're not, or that they think they're watching and they're watching them incorrectly?
Yes, the metrics that you mentioned, that those are exactly the metrics that really should be in front of you, and people should know, where the money is going. Something that we recommend, and our approach is we use this term called leading indicators, because if you're looking at your NOI, you're looking at history. Things have already happened. If you're looking at your occupancy today, it is what it is. It's too late to make decisions on having improved it or having the picture look better, and so on. So what we do is we recommend look at leading indicators, things that predict what your NOI is going to look like, or things that predict what your occupancy or delinquency is going to look like 3 months from now. And so keep an eye on those numbers, and actually keep a really close eye on those numbers, because that's what really matters. Because that's what's in your control today. So how many leads are you generating? How many showings? How many leads are you actually converting? Take a look at that. Keep an eye on your move outs, because that's a predictor of occupancy down the road. And look at how many, if you've given eviction notices, things like that, because that, that number is useful, but it tells you that ultimately your occupancy or your NOI and your other revenue target are going to be impacted if you don't address these indicators.
No, that makes sense. I think another way to look at that on the lead generation is kind of filling the funnel. It's like if you're not posting ads today, you're not going to have showings tomorrow. You're not going to have applications the next day. You're not going to have new residents the day after that. So, and then even so, I know one lead generator that has been a little painful of late in our industry has been just the supply chain disruptions in the marketplace, and it's hard to get a home right now. So like I've got a vacant lot. I'm calling the manufacturer. We're 3 months out, 6 months out. We quit taking orders for community managers, community owners, and it's like, well, I know that lot's not going to be full next month or the month after.
Hmm.
or I got to go find a used home, which that's challenging to do in this environment as well. There's so much competition for used homes. So yeah, I definitely think that makes sense to look towards the future, because otherwise, you can't really impact it and plan it and implement changes or decision making.
Yeah, because I want my customers to be proactive rather than reactive, and so that's why we recommend picking the metrics that actually are specific and relevant to your current situation. So we look at property management operations as a system, and so the system starts with a lead, and then you convert the lead into a customer. You collect rent, and at some point you get ready for the end of the lease and the turnover, and you have to prepare the unit. Hopefully just simple turn as opposed to major refurbishing. So uh, think of that as a system, and as the leader of the operations, your job is to optimize that system so that there are no bottlenecks anywhere. And so some companies have a challenge in generating leads, or as the situation is today, you just don't have a physical home for somebody to take possession of, even if you've got customers ready to pay. Other companies have a very hard time uh, turning over units and getting them ready, and they go over budget over time and they lose out on business. So depending on the nature of your business, focus on where the problem area is, and then identify what are the metrics to measure there. So if it's turning over the units, then are you estimating the cost in the first place? Are you doing inspections in advance? Are you do you have a track schedule? And if you don't, then maybe those are the metrics you should be looking at. So, while you can look at NOI and your occupancy and other things, that's great. But to really optimize your business, you need to look at very specific metrics that indicate whether you have a problem or not.
I think that makes sense. And I heard, I think it was Keith Cunningham, who's the original Rich Dad from Rich Dad Poor Dad. He was talking about optics, and he talked about, I need to be able to see and understand, how the game is played, how to keep score, what metrics, what tools I need so I can have a better view, better vision, and that's going to help me impact the future a lot better than, looking through the rearview mirror. And he gave an example of, if I closed my eyes, I could probably walk out to my truck, get in my truck, turn it on. Could I drive home? I could visualize, where I'm backing out, where the turn is, where the highway is, where the neighborhood is. And he's like, reality is I probably could do it 90% on each of those steps, but you got to do it 100%. I need to have my eyes open. I need to have better optics. Goalposts and guideposts are of only so much value. But if you in the data, as you know more than about anybody, is you know data is not valuable unless you know how to interpret it and understand it. And data with some organization and categorization and synthesization becomes information. And then over time, if you know how to use it, decision makers can turn information into knowledge. And with experience over time, it becomes wisdom. And garbage in, garbage out as it pertains to data. So I wish I was a better data junkie, because I feel like I know that that's the path to the gold in the rainbow a little bit. But I'm constantly trying to find data points. I'm constantly trying to, I say, you've heard the term postmortem, obviously, like, postmortem in medical. What's the premortem? And I know how to beat my company better than the average guy.
Mhm.
So if I think about this, if the average guy figures out how to beat my company, I'm in trouble. So why don't I figure it out now and go shore up my defenses so that I can't be beat? And having good insights and good access to data is crucial to that.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, you're describing my business model
I'm your new competitor, except I don't know how
yeah,
to do
to the
it
letter.
yet. Really, that's hilarious.
Yeah, yeah. So, based on that, we've really created some products and offers that help companies at least start using the data. And as they consume the standard products, or looking at the standard metrics, then their needs become more sophisticated. And then you actually see the metrics that are on the scorecard change. We actually offer, and that's something that's available for a download on our on rentviewer.com. It's called the Property Management Metrics Handbook, and it's just a book with a lot of metrics, for designed around the process model that we have. In fact, one can also download the property management process model from rentviewer.com as well. That's a generic framework on how a property management business or operation runs, from a systems thinking point of view, that there's a flow, there's a throughput, there are constraints and bottlenecks, and we need to optimize the system so that we can scale up. So you can start by looking at the metrics handbook and say, check, hey, these would be the metrics I should track, and it would be good to have a scorecard like that. And and then we build the actual dashboard for companies that way. And and you'll it's very interesting that for example, there's a customer relationship I have where we started off with a standard dashboard with just the standard metrics that you started with, the high level financials and the occupancy, and now there's a metric that they're tracking is like how many one-on-one meetings have been conducted with employees. Nobody would think of asking for that, but we say, well, if you really want to train your people and coach your people so that you don't have to run the operations yourself, then you've got to meet with them regularly. There's no switch that you can turn on and your business becomes scalable. You've got to develop and coach your people. And if you keep missing those one-on-one meetings that you need to have, you're not going to achieve your goals. And so we said, let's put that on the scorecard and let's track it. So that's an example of a customized scorecard, but that addresses specific challenges that the owner operator is trying to address.
That makes sense. I mean, identifying, some people call them, and maybe it's the same, key performance indicators, that things that are key to measuring your performance, right?
There you go.
I think that sounds good. I mean, I remember some of what you're telling me. This is bringing me back, and I remembered that analogy on data from, I took I think it was called Computer Information Systems or Management Information Systems class in college, and the teachers saying the same sort of thing you're talking about, which is identify, as you say, a scorecard, identify the variables or the key measurable points that are going to impact your business, and then watch them. And I think Peter Drucker says, what gets measured gets managed. So, if you want to lose 30 pounds, you probably should have a scale because you can measure it, and then you'll manage it, as opposed to just wishing it to happen. But no, that's good stuff. So, what other tips and tricks? This is good stuff. And you mentioned some of your tools on your toolkit and stuff you've got on your website. What other immediate action steps, if any, can I take to make my property management business better? You're not having been you're not under the hood of mine, but just in general, like what can I do? Is it settings? Is it creating scorecard checklist items? Is it understanding my financials? Is it getting the right people on the right seats on the bus? How would you rank those sort of things or other things?
Yeah. The metrics and scorecards, they're actually, I put them about third or fourth in priority. So what we start with is the voice of the customer. So just ask yourself, who are your customers and what do they expect from you as the owner, operator of this business? You have your investors, you have your partners, you have your residents, and you also have your employees. So I recommend that these are your customers and clearly understand what they're expecting from you and put that down. And because that's going to be the starting point for creating that scale that you talked about, you stand on the scale and it tells you how many pounds you weigh. You need a way to know whether you're meeting the expectations of these customers. And your employees are your customers too, because they're going to help you get to, realize your vision. And they expect something from you too. So we put that first. Second, we say, okay, then let's design your processes. That system that we talk about, your property management system, that actually, converts leads into paying residents, and you collect rent in a very predictable way, and you cycle through that many, many, many times, and you've optimized that system. So step two is design that system. What's the flow? How do things work? And not necessarily talking about writing down all the standard operating procedures, but at least have a flow of things. And then third is the people. Understand what your employees and your even your vendors have to be part of your company, because we can't afford to hire for everything. So understand what they want, what their aspirations are, and how they can get to their goals through the system that you're trying to build. The system that can take hundreds of thousands of leads and ultimately convert them into a solid, fully occupied portfolio, and that generates predictable cash flow. So put all of these three things together first. The voice of your customer, your processes, and your people, and then decide how you're going to keep score. What are the metrics to track, and that's our formula.
That makes sense. And I know you were telling me before we were online here, your business model has adapted to be able to fit smaller customers or common customers, where as 20 years ago it was you're going to do a deep dive consulting hourly rate or consultation fee for one customer, but you've kind of systematized your business, so to speak, where your expertise can be in portions, bought at a package or implemented in bulk, so that the little guys like me can afford to hire you.
Yeah. We had to follow our own advice and say, just design your business around the voice of the customer. If your target market doesn't want to pay thousands of dollars for a dashboard, then design a dashboard that is at the price point of the customers that you want to serve. Mm-hmm. So
that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any, Saad? Do you have any, stories that you want to share as far as you were able to take company X and turn them into 2X or anything like that through some of these processes, or or a horror story perhaps of when I have horror stories. I don't get to tell most of them online here, but horror stories of clients that didn't take my advice, and then it's like, oh, why didn't you do that? Do you have you have some of that too, or like?
Yeah, we do. The customers where we're actually working closely with, one of the first things we do is I ask to be allowed to sit in their operations review meetings, and hopefully they're all having operations review meetings monthly, or ideally weekly, and I just sit in and observe what happens, and then sometimes I have to sit in more than a few meetings, and then I talk with the owner and say, okay, so what happened? You talked about these issues, you identified problems, people took notes. How are you going to follow up on that? And we do follow up, but by the time we come to the next meeting, there are other problems, and we start talking about those problems, and we forgot about the ones that we were dealing with last week. So we say, okay, let's kind of aim for the vision where you have these meetings, and before your team arrives, they've already looked at the metrics. They already know what the numbers are. They already know what the variances are. They already know what the problems are, because you've given them the data tools, you've given them the dashboards, and you've given them all that. And they arrive at the meeting and explain that, look, these are the top variances, and this is what I'm going to do about them. And your job is to just, provide guidance there. so instead of the meeting starting off with people arriving and saying, oh, so this happened yesterday. Oh, we have this problem today. No, a few weeks or a few months into this relationship, we get to the point where people arrive and tell the leadership what the top issues are that need to be addressed and how they're going about it. And it works. And it's a huge transformation because you realize that people you were just delegating to and giving, putting things on their plate, they can really shine. They can become proactive and they can just become leaders of their area.
That's great. No, I totally can relate. And I was telling an employee a couple of weeks ago, I said, you know why I'm so hard on you? And I'm hard on him. Literally, I work him to death almost, and I'm hard on him. And he said no. And I said, because I know what your potential can be, and you haven't accepted it yet. And I'm going to push you until you're there. And he's been doing great, and he has been for the last several years. But it's, people will be surprised themselves and surprise you what they're capable of if you only let them.
Absolutely. It really does. I've seen just people step up and do amazing things. And just with a few little tools and methods, as leaders, we can really bring out the potential in people.
No, absolutely. And that's part of the fun of being a leader, right? I use the analogy all the time of, getting the right people on the bus and the right seats on the bus. And part of that is you got to set your team up for success.
Mm-hmm.
You, for example, are clearly math oriented, data. Okay, you would be an easy fit to put in the accounting department, but you might not be in the sales department. Maybe you're both. Maybe you got both. But there often are people in the accounting department that are not supposed to be in sales and vice versa. And the old Peter principle, I used to work in government, and it was common that you would get promoted until your highest level of incompetence. And the way to do it is if you were a good appraiser, they couldn't pay you more just to be a good appraiser. So they had to make you the manager of appraisal. Well, you might be a horrible manager, but they wanted, that was the only way to get a compensation increase. It's like, you were good as an appraiser, you're bad as a manager. Now we put you in the wrong seat on the bus, and it doesn't do anybody any good. Hurts the other appraisers underneath you, hurts you. So in a rigid environment of government, you have compensation limitations that don't necessarily exist as much in private practice. It's been one benefit. One thing I've liked about being on the private side is if I've got somebody who's really good at sales, well, okay, I don't care if I hope they make extra money because it means they're delivering for them and for me. And then you have that autonomy and flexibility that you didn't have in the old government environment. But anyway, it's nice to be able to set people up for success by getting them in the right spot, and then they make everybody better.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think if somebody were to ask me what's the most satisfying part about my job, I'd say I get to grow and develop people and have an impact on their career and their self-confidence.
That's exactly right. I'm glad you said that. And their self-confidence, their self-worth. Work can be edifying. If you hate your job, it won't be edifying to you or others. I'm proud to be able to employ other people, to house people, through my efforts and through theirs. So it's a satisfactory feeling for sure. Well, that's great. Saad, any more comments before we go? If not, tell us where we can find you. I think you mentioned your website. Where's the best way people get a hold of you? And
so our product, our brand for the property management space is rentviewer.com. I do have another site that might be interesting for owner operators called scale123.com. And Scale123 is more of a coaching and advisory business where I work one-on-one with owner operators who want to actually make process improvements and create a system basically on which they can scale their business. So rentviewer.com and scale123.com.
All right. Thanks, Saad. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Ferd. Thank you very much.
Bye now.